Thank you so much for putting your Penn State email into the chat box for me. And we are going to start our last chapter here. So sad, I know. So this chapter is talking about, it's kind of encompassing everything about statistics. You know, we do all these different tests and procedures, you know, but at the end of the day, what does it all really mean to us, I guess, is the main idea. And, you know, when we're doing these procedures, why, you know, what things do we have to keep in mind while we're doing them in order for them to be representative and for them to be ethical? So that's what chapter 12 focuses on. So there is something called the large sample causation. And basically large sample caution. And it's just saying that if you have a large enough sample size, you can detect the smallest departures from the null hypothesis. That's just saying that if there's a little bit of a difference, you'll be able to find it because you have a large enough sample size. That's why, so for studies with large sample sizes, you want to make sure you ask yourself if the magnitude of the observed difference from the null is of any importance, you know. So if you have a large sample size and you see a little bit of difference from the null hypothesis, you want to keep in mind and discuss, you know, is this something that's actually significant, or am I just, is this something that I just see because we have a large sample size and it's going to show us any little bit of difference there. So that's the main idea there. You know, we do always want to have those large sample sizes, but we have to be cautious in the fact that we want to check if the differences that we find are practically significant, if there's something that we should really even pay attention to. All right, and then on the other hand, and we've been talking about this, you know, the whole semester, the small sample caution. So if we have small sample sizes, then a large departure from the sample results may not even be that significant in our, you know, in the overall idea. And then, but it says, although it may be a practical concern. So that means that if there's a big change, if there's something very different from the sample results from the null hypothesis, it may not show to be statistically significant, but in reality, it is practically significant. So like I was saying, when we're doing these kinds of things, we want to make sure that we're talking about we're trying to decide if it's going to be significant in real life, which is what our practical significance is. So as we've been talking about all semester, we do always want to have that larger sample size. So the idea here, just keep in mind that if you see here, so for small sample sizes, let's see if I can draw, that'd be awesome. Okay, so for small sample sizes, we have to look out for a large departure from the sample results. So that's they're kind of inverse of each other for us to decide that. Just because we're trying to make sure that we understand that if we have these small sample sizes and there's a large departure from the results, maybe it isn't going to be statistically significant, but if we look more into it, it could be practically significant, meaning like it could have actually been something that we could have used. So in reality, in the end, it's motivating us to use a larger sample size, as we've been talking about the whole semester. And then something else to be cautious about is not necessarily having to do with the size of the sample, but how many tests you're doing. So when you have a large number of significance tests conducted, you have to keep in mind that some of those individual tests can be deemed significant by chance. So kind of has to go along with our p-value, like if, you know, the probability that something will kind of happen by chance. So you want to keep in mind that if an individual, when you take a bunch of tests and then some of them are deemed significant, that could have been by chance, even if in reality the null hypothesis is true. So that means that a false positive, that means we're going to reject the null, saying there's some sort of change when in reality there's no change going on. So that's what a false positive would be, and that's what could happen if you do multiple tests. So the more tests you take, in reality, it does kind of increase the chance of this happening. So you just want to keep in mind that, you know, when you see something significant, that it may not necessarily be what you think it is. It could actually be a false positive. There is a chance of getting an error when you're taking multiple tests here. All right. Okay, so, and then when you're doing studies, it's very important to think about ethical considerations. And I do this really often when I do research in my major for speech pathology. Whenever you're doing a research project, you can't just take data from, you know, anybody, you know, at any time and There's a lot that goes into it, so, and this, is very, most people understand this very well. This isn't something that, should be surprising, but, you do have to get the consent of the person before you do a research study on them. So it's just to make sure that you're set, like they're accepting the fact that they're going to do the study, and then you're also, accepting the fact that they're participating. And it also kind of, it's usually what's in it is saying that they can like stop the study at any point. That's something that's often in informed consent. And it's kind of just to have like a permanent product of something to say, like, this is, the person said that they were okay with doing the study, everything is okay. And then, you can turn that into the IRB if necessary, which will basically, they're the ones who kind of make sure that everything is in order for research projects. And then avoiding coercion is basically making sure that the researcher isn't like bribing the different participants to do their study. So this means that, if they're going to give them money for doing the project, that's possibly they're being coerced there. And then this may end up, not, so maybe that's going to skew the results in the end, because that can be like a confounding variable that maybe, if they're offering a large amount of money to do it, maybe people who are of like a lower SES would be more interested in doing it to, get that money. But so you're going to get a different group of participants. So that's the main idea there, that, whatever you're coercing them with, whatever that incentive is, it may draw a specific population towards your study, so then your results won't necessarily be representative of the entire population or whatever you're looking at. They may be skewed towards whoever was attracted to whatever the incentive was in that case. Avoiding harm to subjects is pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, when you're doing a study, you don't want to harm anybody. This usually comes into play when we're talking about medicine and doing different studies upon, like, does this medication work or does it not? We don't want to be testing if a medication works or not on people who need the medication, because if we give half of them a placebo, that means basically we're not treating them. So that's not ethical at all. So you want to make sure that if you're doing something like that, that you are basically, the opportunity is either to stay the same or to improve. You never want to run the chance of, your study not, like, whatever you're trying to find, like, not working and then harming your subjects in the end. And then voluntarism of participation. This kind of goes a little bit back to avoiding coercion, because you want to make sure that, and also in informed consent, it says that you're allowed to, like I said, you can leave the study at any point. You're not required to stay there. Even if you sign that you say you want to participate, you can always leave. And then that also goes into, if you have an incentive, often, you put in the informed consent that you can leave whenever and still be incentivized, which basically controls for the fact that these participants are voluntarily doing this study. They're not doing because they feel like they have to stay, because they're, trapped in the room, because they don't think they're going to get the reward if they don't finish. So it's kind of controlling for all of that, basically telling them they have the opportunity to leave if they want to and still have all the benefits that they signed up for. So that is how we ensure that the participants are actually volunteering to do this and are not, doing this because of, other reasons there. All right, let's try some review questions. This is a very conceptual chapter, I guess, so looks like a lot of words, but it's not that bad. So let's try this one out. So a new treatment for brain tumors involves placing biodegradable, time-releasing pouches of a new drug into the cavity created during the surgery to remove the tumor. This type of treatment is expected to work better than taking the drug orally, since it will deliver the drug straight to the site of the cancer rather than through the blood system, where it might have harmed healthy parts of the body. To make the best statistical comparison, a study is planned that will use the new procedure on a randomly selected group of patients and place similar pouches without the new drug in a control group of patients, with the surgeon unaware of whether the pouches contain the new drug or not. All the subjects taking part would have given their informed consent. This would be what? So go ahead and read through these three options here, and based upon ethics and what we just talked about, let me know what answer you think out of that, and then we will discuss this one together. Great job. Absolutely. So, and you explained it very well too. So yeah, our answer here is going to be B, because if we look, and so of questionable ethics, since the sham treatments to the patches without the drug may do harm. So in reality, because they're trying to figure out if the treatment is better or not. So that means that, like we were just talking about, they're giving some people the treatment that they think is better, but then they're kind of giving the other ones just the old drugs. So that means that it could be harmful, because they already understand that that's not useful right now. So yeah, the answer to that one, it would be B, because placebos and other sham treatments shouldn't be created in a way that they may harm the patients there. The placebo should at least give some sort of relief, or not change it at all. But in this case, they could be detrimental. So our answer would be B there. So good job. All right. All right, let's try this true or false one. So true or false, informed consent is not necessary if the research clearly benefits the subject. So let me know what you think about this one. Great. Yep, absolutely. So our answer is false here, because, yep, exactly. 100%. You guys are doing great with explaining it. So we definitely, no matter what, you do have to get informed consent, especially, if it's human subjects. It's like very important, because you have to make sure that, they're cognitively able to, make this decision. And then also, that they're able to kind of balance the benefits and the risk. So, if they want to be the ones to say, is it worth doing the study? Is it going to harm me more than it wouldn't? And I mean, often research studies are not in any way, ever really meant to harm people. But it's more like indirectly that, things that the researcher didn't think of that could cause these kinds of things. So that's why informed consent is always necessary, because who knows, like there could be the opportunity that it doesn't benefit the subject in any way. So we want to keep that in mind. So great job. All right, let's try this one. So a new treatment for brain tumors involves, so this is, oh wait, I'm sorry. I just went back to the other one. Oop, let's do, sorry. Yep, this is our last one. Sorry, I went to the other one. Okay, the language in an informed consent document should what? So read through these ones, and let me know what you think about the language in informed consent. Yay, good job, guys. Smart as usual. So yes, our answer is B here, because when we're doing informed consent, we kind of want to assume the ignorance of all of our participants. So in that case, we do want to make sure that the language that we're using is something that they understand, so that they're not going to be confused about anything. And, so they know what they're agreeing to in this case. So we don't want it to be detailed and scientific, because obviously then they may not be able to understand it. And then for C, obviously, we don't always want to, in some cases you do want to, you don't want to say the purpose of the experiment in terms of, you don't want that to affect the way that they perform on it and, how they answer questions. But that's not something that is really involved in informed consent anyway. And it's not something you should be thinking about in that aspect. So our answer would be B there. Exactly. Yeah. So I know I participated in a research study as a participant doing, it has something to do with like giving choices based upon a person, and like the characteristics they gave us about the person. And then we were making choices based upon like what award they should receive or something. And I think it was testing something about like gender and racial attitudes. So they didn't want to say, oh, we're testing, what you think, like what your impulsive decisions about different races and different genders are, because then that would have impacted how I answered the questions. But since they didn't say that, they just said you're going to answer some questions about some people, then that's the, goal was for that to be a visceral reaction from each person that was actually, representing what they felt about the situation. So great job. All right, so yeah, short chapter, definitely. So our next group review will be on Thursday for to study for the final. So I hope you guys are feeling confident with all of that. If you haven't given me your email, please go ahead and put that in the chat box. And obviously watch back everything on the YouTube video and the YouTube channel if you need refreshers on anything, but we'll obviously go over everything again next week. So let me know if you have any other questions. Of course, thank you for stopping by and hanging out. If not, you guys are good for tonight.